So you mentioned you have some custom compositor being worked on there with Mir. You mentioned LabWC in the original announcement. So is the plan to have both? Is LabWC kind of just there to have something working? Like, what's happening there?
So LabWC is the preferred default
Okay.
for Budgie 1010.
Mhm.
So Budgie 1010 is the GDK3 based desktop environment that we fully moved over from being X11 only to Wayland only. So
Mhm.
we don't support both. And at least in terms of the user story for Budgie 11, well, I'm not locking anybody down to using Magpie. They could, so long as their compositor supports the protocols we use, I don't care what they use. It's their freaking system. If they want to throw Neri at it and it breaks, yeah, fix it, whatever. Like, we'll do it live. But LabWC itself, I don't expect us to be consuming for Budgie 11, at the very least by our planned preview 1. Which no timeline for it because we are fantastic at timelines, but we already have a laundry list of all the must-haves for Budgie 11 preview 1.
So. I was curious about that because with Cosmic, even though it's not documented right now, you can swap out the compositor. With both KDE and GNOME, you can't really. You technically could with KDE, kinda, but a lot of the shell is also implemented through the compositor. So that is still something you're going to be able to do. It's just, is that something you want to encourage? You want to have that documented, or is it something where if people want to swap out Magpie, they could go and do so?
Documentation is always a pain point, but
Sure.
yes, I would like to have a clear guidance on, hey, you could do whatever. Here's the Wayland protocols that you need to support. And we actually, as part of our building Budgie 1010 document for like packagers, we say, hey, you can actually ship this with, like, if you want to ship with Wayfire, you can. And in fact, the Ubuntu Budgie guys wrote a bridge. So we already have it working under Wayfire, which is another WL roots based compositor. And in fact, for my streaming PC, I have it running on top of Wayfire because it's more stable. OBS doesn't randomly crash and somehow lose the connection to the Wayland socket. I don't know how that's possible, but regardless, yeah, absolutely. I want to have it documented. I want to encourage it. Here are the settings you should take into account and the integration patterns and the control center that we're going to be building. We don't have it locked in stone, but it may be that it uses KCM, and we provide a clear path for even writing graphical configuration directly in. So we would have one for Magpie, and then if you're running something else, maybe a different panel would show up for like Neri with its own options. This is all stuff we want to expose.
So obviously, when it comes to like the Wayland libraries, and you don't really have much of a choice in that regard if you want to do C++. You've kind of just like, if you're going to do WL roots, you're going to do C. If you're going to do, and then if you want, and then you considered maybe Smithy, you'd then have to do Rust instead.
Yeah, and I have absolutely no issues with Rust. But Smithy, I would say, is more of a parallel to WL roots than it is to something like Mir. In fact, they, as far as I'm aware, they explicitly call out that they're not a framework, and that's perfectly fine. And I know the XFCE people recently announced that they're going to be using Smithy, and I completely agree with that decision. They're able to have a dedicated person work full time, leveraging funding from XFCE to make that a reality. But we're a much smaller team. I have a full-time job. And to be frank, I don't think compositors are particularly sexy of a topic for most end users. It's, can it display my application? Great.
Sure.
Can I full screen something like a game and performance isn't terrible? All right, good enough.
Right.
Can I do some basic window management and tiling? All right, well, that's basically it. So for us, Mir makes a lot of sense. C++ native, like you mentioned, we don't have to do any sort of wrapper of like extern C or around WL roots, and we get a lot more out of it, especially if you use Mural, which is the Mir abstraction layer.
Right. I was not actually aware of that until I saw that in your post. So what is Mural then?
Mural is, as the name implies, an abstraction layer, so it handles things like window management policies. So they have a bunch of predefined ones, including like floating window management policies.
Okay.
And they handle the actual rendering and decorations. And you just say, if you want to prefer SSDs, boom, done. It's just one flag. And suddenly, oh yeah, we support SSDs. We're not going to force CSDs on you and force people to use libdecor like some other compositors. So it enables you to go from having no compositor to having a compositor in, I don't know, 15 minutes. It's insane. Like a functioning one too. I'm not talking like, oh wow, I could run Kitty and that's it.
Right.
I was able to launch. It took a little finessing. To launch a Budgie panel in my Magpie within, if I wasn't farting around with Wayland sockets for that long, in the span of like an hour.
Okay.
And most of that was just me experimenting with stuff. I mean, what other sort of compositor framework enables that? I don't think there's any of them. Now, the benefit of all those other ones is you could get really, really into the weeds on, you know, how you want surfaces to render. And they might handle abstractions like lib input and, you know, video buffers and whatever else. I'm not interested in that, at least not yet. And for that, if I need to go a level deeper, there's always just Mir and Mir APIs. But for me, it's like window management policies. It's where do layer shell windows go? So these are like surfaces like the panel. The panel I expect to anchor in a particular position. It may or may not have exclusion zones to prevent windows from overlapping it. And that's kind of it. That's all I particularly care about. I'm going to have to integrate like KDE output management because, well, Mir doesn't support that, and I am not going to go with the WLR alternative, because if you compare the two, it's like the KDE one was actually invented for people that use monitors and need to do things like color grading or like HDR. And the WLR one is like, do you like having a mode? All right, you could go 4K. All right, you like adaptive sync. All right, we got you there. Cool. I mean, for most people, that's perfectly fine. Not for everybody else, though.
It's basically equivalent to what you get with Xrender. And for like basic configuration, that's, you know, it's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, clearly we thought it was okay enough to ship it with Budgie 1010. Otherwise, we would have gone off into the weeds and had to somehow integrate KDE output management into like a compositor like LabWC or something. So, but seems to be working for most people. But I mean, Budgie 1010 hasn't launched and created a massive fire, so I would say it's been fine. I mean, that's all I could hope for. Not everything works, which is why we shipped a 10.10.1, and we will continue to ship point releases. But that will basically just be Wayland compatibility fixes and maybe some minor features here and there that are like easy wins that David wants to work on, because like they plan on shipping it in an LTS for Ubuntu, so he has a lot of incentive to keep it running and to keep it working and to keep it improving. Meanwhile, I could be off in the weeds with Budgie 11.
So with Mural doing so much for you, like what does that actually leave for you to actually do with it, right? Because obviously there's the Magpie repo, so there's code that you've had to write.
Yeah, the first thing I really wanted to implement, well, first off, it doesn't handle configuration for you.
Sure.
So you have to have some sort of configuration method. I went with KConfig, because with my experience using implementing Budgie desktop services, which uses TOML 11, I did not want to have to write manual parsing code by hand again. And KConfig does like 99% of what I want. It outputs it in INI, which isn't great, but it's something I can live with. And they haven't really been opposed to the idea of supporting other formats either, which is great. So we use KConfig, and we actually have the Qt main loop working, so we could do Qt things, signals and slots, that sort of stuff, which is good for Kiosk mode, which isn't something that is just magically supported in Mir. So Kiosk mode, for those that don't know, allows you to launch, or enables you to launch a given process and ensure that process is running, or if it stops running, you either restart it or you kill the compositor. So this is particularly important if you want to have your compositor running something like SDDM for login management. You really want to make sure end to end that thing is going to have a compositor, and you're not going to be creating a security vulnerability or security issue by just enabling somebody to kill the compositor. And oh, look, suddenly I somehow magically have access to the system. How convenient. So Kiosk mode was a big one. And then I was like, you know what? I have to learn how to figure out where windows are, because I want to be able to do custom positioning for like Budgie panel outside of what Layer Shell is capable of, because we want to support things like dock mode. I mean, what a better way to start of just the different focus modes. So click to focus on a window, follow focus, so it will automatically raise a window, sloppy focus, so it doesn't raise a window, but it allows you to put your mouse over a window. It has focus, so you can start typing, like,
is that
say
what
you
that's
have an
called?
ID.
Is that like
Yeah, it's sloppy focus. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that had a name. Like that's just how I use KDE.
Yeah. So none of that existed. And I was like, I really want that, because we were like, oh, that's a big feature. We got it with LabWC. I was like, you know what? Wouldn't it be a nice flex just to be like, that's the first thing I implement properly? So I did it. It took a stream, so a few hours, and a little bit of time after that to figure out that I was missing an override on a function. But like, other than that, like, it was implemented. It's great. So Mir doesn't handle a lot of that for you, but you'd be surprised how much their window management does support. You can't do tiling, so you have to implement your own window management policies around that. And we're going to have tiling because we like computers, and we're not Mac OS as well. So we're going to have tiling capabilities. Got to implement that. There's a laundry list of shit I got to implement.